And there are other verses that are open to interpretation. Open to interpretation means something very deep. Open to interpretation means when the verse, and more than this, it's not only that the verses are not clear and definitive in meaning, they are open to interpretations. So sometimes the verses are open to interpretations, and sometimes the text is silent. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ is telling us when he is referring to God. وَسَكَتَ عَنْ أَشْيَاء رَحْمَةً بِكُمْ. He kept quiet on issues as a mercy for you. Meaning what? When the text is silent, make up your mind. Think. Meaning to have the power of thinking. If God is silent on things, it means now it's your turn to think. Not in a void, but relying on what he said on other issues. So this is where the scholars were saying there is analogy reasoning. You understand this, and then you have to think about that. But this means that between this and that, there is human agency. Human agency in the light of the book, but not literally coming from the book. So when it is said in the Quran, everything is in the book, it means all the references are in the book if you use your mind. Not by repeating what is in the book, but by coming back in the book, understanding the principles, and making your mind when it comes to new issues. For example, you don't have, in a very simple thing, you don't have in the book anything which has to do with smoking. Because cigarettes were not there. Does it mean that in the Quran something is missing? No. It's in the Quran that you have something about the way you deal with your health, why you don't drink alcohol, because it's against your health. So you take the principle, you think about it, and you come with the new issue. When the text is silent, your mind, you should be present. You get that? When the text is silent, your mind should be present in the light of the text, but not reducing everything to the text. They say, it's not in the text, so I can smoke. Some are saying this. I don't know what you do with this. You know, some scholars, they don't like to say smoking is haram. For me, it's clear. How come could you put money to buy cigarettes that are destroying your health and say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? How can you do that? Just explain to me, how is it possible? When we don't drink alcohol because it's against our health, you go and you put money to buy cigarettes that are destroying, while you have so many people who need your money. You better take this money and give it to people who, this is for the people who are smoking. Anyway, it's not the discussion here. But the discussion here is, in the way we deal with the Quran, it is said that the Quran has verses that are clear-cut and verses that are open for interpretations, and sometimes the text is silent. And from the very beginning, the scholars said, when we deal with authority, when the texts are clear-cut, there is no discussion you follow. And this is why the scholars were saying, لا اجتهاد مع النص. No discussion when the text is clear. So if you come to me and say, you know what, we might have to think about a new way to deal with riba, interest, and say, I'm sorry, the text is clear. Haram, haram. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنٌ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ. What is licit is clear, and what is illicit is clear. Don't try to play with the text by saying it's not clear. It's clear, it's clear. So you have to pray 5 times a day. Don't come to tell me, oh, it might be now, because the time, you know, modern life. Let us pray 3 times. When you have a mufti in France who is saying, because we are in a non-Muslim society during Ramadan, during the day, the daytime, just to show that we are open to people, we just have a drink coffee during Ramadan. Oh, this is a good mufti, this is a good way forward. No. The clear is clear, and we don't deal with this. This is the authority. It's coming on 3 fields where we don't discuss. In the way we deal with authority. Al-Aqidah, the 6 pillars of faith, Al-Ibadat, the 5 pillars of Islam, and all the prohibitions. We don't discuss this. It's clear-cut in the Quran. And it is said by the ulama from the very beginning, مَعْلُوم مِنَ الدِّينِ بِالضَّرُورَةِ, known as being the imperative of your religion. You don't play with this. Now, on all the other things that have to do with masalih al-nas, the masalih is the worldly affairs. In this, the authority is not the same. It's so much the case that, as I said yesterday, people were coming to the Prophet. You remember Ubab when he came in Ghazwat Badr, and they were put in a specific situation, a strategy of war, and he came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him, is this coming from God? Meaning, is this coming from the three fields, aqidah, ibadat, or prohibitions? Is it coming from God? I don't discuss. Is it coming from your mind? I discuss. And he discussed. The Prophet ﷺ acknowledged, it's coming from me. He said, it's not good. Meaning that there is another way of dealing with authority. When you deal with authority and worldly affair, here we have a top-down process. Is that the people who are skilled, the people who know, they can challenge the authority, even of the Prophet. You want another example? Ghazwat Uhud. He was of the opinion, we stay in Medina and we wait for the enemies. The young people were very, very much against this strategy. Why? Because some of them were not at Badr. So they wanted to go, and because they heard that if you were at Badr, you can just be elected in, and welcomed by God. They wanted to do the same in Uhud. This was very much about their own faith. And the Prophet ﷺ said, we stay. They said, no, we go. And they voted. And the people who were for going out, they won. And the Prophet ﷺ stood up, went, changed his clothes, and was to go for war. And they were scared, said, well, maybe we made a mistake because this is the Prophet ﷺ. So they went to him, said, we might change. Said, no, when the decision is taken, we go. Meaning, I was in a minority, you were the majority, I follow what you decide. And in fact, the Quran, he was right, by the way. It would have been better to stay. And the Quran is coming after they were defeated in Uhud, saying, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Look at this. Because you have the open heart, if you have been harsh with them after this decision, they would have left you. But you have to forgive them. You have to pray for them. And then you still have to consult them. Even after the defeat, the Quran is coming to say the principle of sharing authority in worldly affairs should remain. You don't have to change this. Why? Because the principle of consultation is not based on results. It's based on principles. So you come back. Look at this. Islam is coming with a set, the authority of religious here matters, aqidah, ibadat, prohibitions, and obligations, we don't touch. Some philosophers were even saying the secular process of distinguishing authority in Christianity came from the Muslim influence. Why? Because we didn't have this attitude which is, when it's religious, you don't talk. When it's religiously inspired, you have no take on any issue. That's not the way Muslims are dealing with authority. We have, in fact, two different ways, two different strategies. In this, look at this, it's very deep in Islam. And this is why you need to know this. And this is why you will see that with many of your fellow citizens, Christians, Buddhists, you have lots to share. Instead, we don't have this same, this attitude which is, when you speak about religion, we don't have a space to speak. Something which is, when you deal with al-ibadat, and when you deal with al-aqidah, and when you deal with prohibition and obligation in this, in fact, here you can do but what is in the text. For example, the way the Muslims pray. It's not coming from your mind, it's coming from the text. So in order to pray, you should show me in the text something which is showing me how to pray. But when it comes to the public and worldly affair, I can do whatever I want as long as you come with a text telling me it's wrong. So here you can do but what is in the text. Here you can do everything except if in the text is prohibited. Here is about the text has the upper hand, here is my mind, and the text is only showing me. And this is why the scholars said, Al-aslu fil ashya al-ibah. The principles in worldly affair is permission. Now I can do whatever I want. If you want to prevent me from doing something in my daily life, just come and show me a text telling me you can't do it. So here is permission. And here is obligation based on the text, and the text is the reference.